I'm very much honored to chair this session about Indonesia. And we are very happy to have Ms. Hathy Murty to be our guest speaker. And we're happy to have Mr. Zachary Li Zongxian of Deutsche Welle to respond to Ms. Murty's presentation. Our CEO has briefly introduced our two guests. So I think I just somehow repeat what I have learned about our two presenters. Ms. Hathy Murty is a well-experienced journalist and researcher in the field of journalism. She's young, but she is very seasoned. She's been very active in different NGO activities in Indonesia over the past 20 years or so. She is now, the manager of the Indonesia Cyber Media Association. But I must mention that she's also one of the pioneers in data journalism in Indonesia. She has served at the different positions of different news organizations. Primarily, she is an advocate of press freedom and freedom of speech, which of course is of essential importance to all of us journalists. She also worked as a consultant to UNESCO Indonesia Bureau with emphasis on press media and the freedom of expression as well. So I thank you very much for being present today. And our responder, Zachary Li, who is currently with Deutsche Welle. He probably just returned from the Philippines. I was told he was there to cover the very important elections. Before Deutsche Welle, Zachary worked for various news organizations, including BBC, especially importantly for today's session, this session, is that he was with Metro TV Indonesia. Metro TV, as we know, is a multi-language news network, which provides not only Indonesian news, but also provides Mandarin Chinese news as well as English news for some time, if I'm correct. So I think it's really nice to have Zachary to discuss Ms. Murty's presentation. So without further ado, let's just welcome Ms. Murty. She is going to talk about the subject of her speech is the impact of a pandemic of COVID-19 on journalists and the media organization in Indonesia. We know that Indonesia is a culturally rich, socially diverse, politically interesting, economically dynamic country. But when it comes to the question of media, then probably the picture is somehow different. Let's just welcome Mr. Murty again. We look forward to your presentation, and we know that you will address some of the issues here. Thank you very much. Please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. James. It's very honor for me to be here this afternoon. Anybody could you give me access to share my screen?
Yeah. 嘉怡她的镜头不见了。
Okay. Can you see my screen?
No, I can't see it from here. Not on my screen. I don't know. Okay, yeah, we have this. Yeah, PDF.
Okay.
Right. Okay, yeah.
Okay. Let me change.
Please go on.
Yeah. Please wait. Let me change the style on full screen. Just.
Okay, take your time. Let's just make the okay. Then we will proceed.
How about now? Can you see my screen well?
Just a still picture. Now, yes, okay.
Okay.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
it's fine now.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. James, for introducing me to participants. And once again, it's a great honor for me to be here, join Asian Journalism Forum 2022, and I will share the situation during the pandemic that impacted journalists and media organization in Indonesia. I will share the first data, the figures of media in Indonesia before the pandemic COVID-19, and the update. According to the Press Council data, the number of media outlets in Indonesia is reaching around 47,000. This is based on 2019 data. There were 43 and 300 media, digital media, I mean, and 2,000 until 3,000 television or TV, and also around 700 until 1,700 radios. But this is very huge for our country. I mean, compared to before 1998, the number of media is very small, but after yes, around 2000 or at least 10 years, past 10 years, the number of digital media growth is very significant. But based on Press Council data, of course, the number of media that has been verified administratively or factually are reaching 1,796. This is the latest data that I got from the website on Press Council. So this is very huge media in Indonesia, but I can call the number of verified media, it's still small. Sorry. And what happened during the growth of digital media? Even the number of digital media is very, very large, at least 10 years. But we can see this is the media advertising revenue. And this figure give a big impact to our media and also the quality of journalism in Indonesia. You can see in the screen that online media advertising revenue keep growing in Indonesia, although the amount is quite small compared to existing number of online media. The online media advertising in blue color, there are since 2018, the number is around 15%, but in 2020 and after, it's around 22%. The percentage it's growth, but compared to the number of existing online media, of course, is not very good number they receive the money, I mean. And this is the figure, how much money actually online media receive from digital advertisement. And you can see I got this data from European Magazine Media Association into 2016, but I guess this figure is still the same until now, because I heard from my colleague in the online media, the number they got from digital advertisement is very small. It's around $0.29 for per click they receive from the digital advertisement. And the entire money, of course, is went to agency, advertiser, or an other digital platform. And yeah, and this is only contribute around 26% or until 39% for digital media revenue. And what happened during the pandemic to media, I mean the effect of this situation to the media during the pandemic COVID-19 in Indonesia, which start in 2020 on March, and until now, of course, even the number of the cases of the pandemic is now is decreased. And according to the survey done by the Indonesian Media Cyber Association in 2020 to 340 online media members, the steps taken by the media to deal with the pandemic are including work termination, on recruitment, revenue, payroll, deduction, salary deferred, and employees layoff, and survivability. And this is the detail of the result. On work termination in early 2020, there have been a layoff of the media team in several areas, especially local media. On recruitment, 100% online media do not recruit new workers. And in terms of the revenue, there was a decline in revenue. It's around 25% until 80%. The average drop of 45%. Sorry. And on payroll deduction, it's about 20% of online media made deduction and varying percentage of payment for the yearly labor allowance. This is happened particularly for middle up reporters who receive more than 15 million rupiah per month. They cannot receive a full payment since the pandemic happened. Some media for this year, I got information from my colleagues. They pay the salary as before the pandemic, but some like allowance or benefit still cut before the situation is not support to give that to the employees. And also on salary deferred, around 15% of media members have delayed payment of salary with varying times. This has happened in 2020. On employees laid off, around 15% of media members have done employees laid off. And in 2020, it still happened to one of big media, big holding media already lay off around 250 their workers early this year. And on survivability, the media's resistance to pandemic varies between 4 until 7 months. This is happened on 2020. And throughout the pandemic, the traffic of online media, of course, increased because so many people working from home. They allowed to find out information on pandemic, but on a revenue on digital media, of course, decrease. And you can see on the screen, the traffic increased around 50 until 60%, but the revenue is decreased 30 until 40%. This is a bad situation, of course, for the media organization. And this condition, of course, affected to journalists during the pandemic, vulnerable to being exposed to COVID-19, especially at the beginning of the pandemic due to the lack of understanding of the sources regarding the health protocols. This is one of problem that happened in early pandemic in Indonesia. And bear protection from the media company. There were journalists that required to prepare their own masks, for example, hand sanitizer and other medical equipment needed during the conducting field coverage. According to the data of Independent Journalists Alliance from March 2020 until 19 June 2021, there were 380 media workers who got infected with COVID-19 and 9 of them died. They came from Jakarta and West Java, Central Java, and East Java. Citing the press emblem campaign, based on Anadolu Agency data in 2022, the number of media workers in Indonesia who died from COVID-19 is reaching 42 people. And I tried to find out a survey made by AJI, Alliance of Independent Journalists, and IFJ in 2020. This research on the economic, the COVID-19 impact to economic of journalists. You can see 83% of 792 respondents said the pandemic is impacting the economy of journalists. This is happened particularly for correspondent. Correspondent is not in-house journalists. They receive money when the article published in the media. So this group very impacted the pandemic. And what do journalist associations, media and press council to deal with this situation? Yeah, I can share to you. This is what they have been doing to help the journalists and also to media to deal with this situation. One is asking various parties to chart their pattern, as such hold press conference from online to online, while keep prioritizing the principle of information disclosure. Also encouraging media companies to implement health protocol in the work environment and provide personal protective equipment for journalists who's on duty in the field, ensuring their medical expenses as well as the workers' right for those who got infected with COVID-19 until the recovery period. And also asking journalists to keep carrying out health protocol during the duty in the field. And Press Council also asking the government to accelerate the vaccination program for journalists in national and local area. including all the media workers, not just journalists who work in the field. This is for one of the example what the press council did in collaboration with a private company. They did regularly swab PCR COVID-19 tests for media workers. And also this is what IG Alliance of Independent Journalists did in early 2020 to help their members and also other journalists. IG had distributed thousands of masks, hand sanitizer, and vitamins to journalists in various regions. This action occurred at the beginning of the shortage of masks, hand sanitizer, and vitamins happened. These three things were rare and costly in early 2020. It's very hard for them to find out proper masks and also hand sanitizer. Even though in the there is they can found that the price is very expensive. So why that's why IG distributed a lot of masks to their member to across the country. And other efforts that had been made, journalists who have been exposed to COVID-19 were receiving cash assistance. Sources of funds were from various companies and public donation. At least 192 journalists have benefit from this program. Fund distributed reached around 198 million rupiahs. This is one of the example collaboration between IG and private company or agency. And they still do this until now. They try to get some funds from a public and company and disperse it to journalists through various programs. For example, covering COVID-19 for the public, monitoring how the government handle COVID-19 in local area and etc. And fellowship for journalists to do cover about COVID-19 from various aspects with the support of donor, as I said, donor institution, private company, and government. This is also due by the press council. And and in AMSI, they try to establish or forming AMSI Crisis Center in 2021 to help the workers of AMSI media workers and give them assistance were in form of vitamin distribution and access to health service information for journalists who exposed to Delta variant of COVID-19. This situation, in Indonesia in 2021, around at July, we faced a very serious situation according to Delta variant. So many journalists affected by COVID-19 and our government very facing difficult situation to handle this. So this is what AMSI did last year. And on vaccination for media workers, the ecosystem tried to encourage government to give attention vaccination to media workers. Since February 2021, vaccination for media workers were done. This was presented by Press Council in collaboration with the Ministry of Health, Journalist Association, and the media. More than 15,000 media workers those receive priority vaccination as have health workers and government officers. And the media is under another difficult situation during the pandemic, of course, facing by media when they cover COVID-19. The media is under pressure when it comes to reporting COVID-19. For example, hoax stem on media, and also they face a digital attack. This is some example that happened on 2020 until 2021. Merdeka.com, it's a digital media, labeled a hoax after infographic about the Omnibus Law bill based on information from one of the labor unions. Kompas.com, this is also actually very familiar, very big digital media in Indonesia, also label a hoax after doing coverage on oxygen scarcity in hospital as the Delta variant increased in 2021. And also one of startup digital media also facing distributed denial of service attack after they reporting cases of sexual violence that had not been taken seriously by the police. And this situation also faced by Jaring.id. This is a startup media, and maybe you can call it independent media, not receiving money from the government. Very outspoken on social on environment cases. They also facing DDoS attack on 2021. And other media collaboration, Indonesia Leaks experienced hacking attempt after publishing investigative coverage related to the alleged long-standing leader of the Corruption Eradication Commission, resulting in the formation of at least of 75 KPK employees to be removed through the National Insight Test, or we call tes wawasan kebangsaan in Indonesia. After publishing a report entitled Student Protest, Tangerang Police Chief Ready to Sign, republika.co.id and also kabar6.com were also labeled a hoax on the Instagram account of Polresta Kota Tangerang. This is a chapter of police officer in Tangerang labeled this two media after wrote about one report. According to them, the news about the Wadas case, a case of community resistance that disagree with the Convention of Agricultural Land for the construction of dam, accompanied by excessive security from the apparatus, violence and arrest of the community labeled as a hoax by the government. This coverage was carried out by lots of media also in 2022. And other violence against journalists that I can share to you, according to the data of AJI, in 2020, there were 84 cases of violence against journalists. The form of violence are including intimidation and physical violence, as well as increasing digital attack on the media. AJI suspect that this is a follow-up impact of the pandemic because the media and journalists carry out control function over the government in dealing with the pandemic. In 2021, 2 journalists experienced dosing as well. Yeah, that's the situation in Indonesia that I can share to you that very difficult situation here, but we try to do something, still cover for the public and save our life as well. Thank you, Mr. James.
Excuse me. Thank you very much. It's a beautifully organized presentation. I find parts of your presentation very disturbing, and also some parts of your presentation very disheartening. So it's very discouraging for journalists, not only in your country, but in probably all over the world. We are facing different problems. The problems is not necessarily caused by COVID-19. The variant, the virus keeps mutating from Delta to Omicron, and will probably keep mutating. We don't know when that will come to an end. I think all the governments are trying very hard to control the spread of virus. And but nonetheless, we are having many problems in journalism. So I would like to ask Zachary Lee, Mr. Lee, to respond to this great presentation. Thank you, Mr. Lee, please.
Thank you so much. Also, thanks a lot, Ms. Hesti Murthy. The presentation is really impressive. It really reflects the situation there in Indonesia, Indonesian media. There are several points I would love to give to everyone here. During the pandemic, actually, I'm already in Taiwan, so I'm not in Indonesia. But I actually just went back to Indonesia 2 weeks ago and met those media people I've been working with, especially Metro TV. Metro TV is one of the mainstream TV televisions in Indonesia. And then, so I've heard a lot from them. The situation during the pandemic and so on. So the first, as Ms. Hesti Murthy mentioned, the salary really decreased during the pandemic. I have many former colleagues who only received half of their payment during the pandemic, so it lasted for several months. Yeah. And so it's a very difficult situation, actually, especially as far as I know, a lot of media in Indonesia, you hire freelancers or contributors. Yeah. So a lot of journalists, especially in rural area, they are not full-time, they are not regular employee. So they don't have benefits. So let's say if they got COVID-19 or they're in a very critical health condition, they don't have health insurance. So that's another problem as well. Especially my former media outlet, Metro TV, they suffered from flooding just 2 months before the pandemic. Yeah. It makes the financial problem very serious. So plus the pandemic, so I've heard that it's really had a big impact in the situation. Second, I've heard from, because during the pandemic, everybody worked from home, even people in TV. So the newsroom didn't really exist during the pandemic. And as we all work in media, and I've been working in different media outlets, I know how important a newsroom is. A newsroom is actually for journalists, editors, producers, to discuss issues from different angles. We debate, we talk about every story how we report, how do we cover, and like who do we interview. So during pandemic, it's more difficult to gather everybody together. I mean, that closely to discuss issues. So that's one of the downsides during the pandemic, especially in TV, which I'm more familiar with in Indonesia. So, and also because everybody work from home, and then the internet is not that good in Indonesia. So, they encountered a lot of problems during the discussion, the newsroom online, I would say. Furthermore, at the beginning of the pandemic, I'm not sure if everybody still remember, Indonesia actually had zero cases of COVID-19 for a very long time. And everybody was so curious that why Indonesia has so many population, but you have zero cases. You have zero case of COVID-19.
Yeah.
So at that time, there's a discussion that the government is not doing good enough in testing and transparency as well. So it's actually a bit difficult for them to cover the story at the very beginning of the pandemic. So yeah, and after the outbreak of pandemic, the government also tried to control the information. Because there are a lot of hoax or fake news. But as we know, during the pandemic, Indonesia is such a big country. You have so many islands. And then, so the local media is actually difficult to cover story as well, because you have to follow the government. There's pros and cons. The pros is you can avoid this information, but somehow for local journalists, they cannot really express or reflect what really happened, especially in rural area. Yeah, I think this is the response I would love to give or add after the presentation. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lee. Now we are coming to our session, Q&A session. All the participants can raise your questions. You can either raise your hand and ask a question, or you can send in your questions, and then we will read out to our two presenters. I would like to ask you, first of all, try not to make comments, and please write your questions as brief and as precise as possible. Thank you very much. Please, is there any question which has come in so far? Okay, yeah, before any question coming from our audience, I would like to take my position. Well, I think it is my privilege to raise the first question. You both mentioned, this government control of information over the pandemic. I think that's happening in many, many countries. And yet the degree of controls as well as the penalties involved are quite different, maybe different from one country to another. So I would like to ask both of you, I think especially Mr. Murphy, what the criteria are the government using to judge what news is hoax, what news is truth, and what kind of a punishment if a news is identified or defined as a hoax, they will use and apply in individual cases. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. James, for your question. So actually, we don't know the government parameter to label mainstream media article as a hoax. That's also our question to them, because they just label, not explain the methodology to the methodology of identification which area or which information that's indicated as a hoax, because on fact checking methodology, we should also explain to the public the sources or the other data information, and also the methodology on digital investigation, for example, as a rationing for a fact checker to stamp one or other information as a hoax. But in a government case, when they label media, I mean article that were published by the media, it's very questioning. They never explain what is the indicators why this information labeled as a hoax. This is why the ecosystem in Indonesia, I mean AJI, of course, and also the Indonesian Media Cyber Media Association asks to government more clear when they label information as a hoax, particularly for information or article from media outlets that, as we know, media outlets has ethic journalism that they should comply with, and we therefore we ask them to explain when one article labeled as hoax, they should explain it, which information that indicated as wrong information. So media can, as we know, media has a way, has a standard to, for example, clarify and also to publish the wrong information, verification, and of course check to another information they should follow. So therefore, we don't know actually the parameter from government, and for example, as I mentioned, from a police officer label information or a media article as a hoax. This is our question also to those parties.
Thank you very much. Zachary, do you have anything to add to it?
I think Ms. Mati answered most of part, but I would love to add something that from the media aspects. During I work in Metro TV, it was 2017, and then at that time the Metro TV doesn't really have a fake news team. Like the team focuses on fake news or disinformation. So I remember at that time we did make a mistake using wrong footage for an earthquake coverage, because the footage was actually old. And then, but during after the pandemic, fake news becomes like a very important issue in Indonesia. Actually, I mean, across globe. So now a lot of TV stations now they have a specific team focused on disinformation. So, for example, in Metro TV, they even has a segment focusing on fake news reporting.
Thank you very much. I have seen some questions coming in. Because my poor eyesight, I would like to ask Jia, our CEO, to read maybe the first question. I think the first question, I saw the first part. It was about the independent fact-checking operations in Indonesia, but I cannot read the second part of, so that's the question part. Jia, could you help?
好，没问题。就是这个问题是提到说印尼有很多事实查核机构那如果说政府指控媒体的新闻是假新闻的时候，那这些事实查核机构如果他们的结论跟政府是不一样的，那他们会勇敢的出来讲说，不是这个新闻不是假的吗？就是说这个在政治的效应上，那事实查核组织有这么强壮吗？他们可以就是说去站在媒体的这一方面，敢去跟政府来做不同的意见的表述吗
？Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, of course. When the label hoax from the government came out, and of course, media ecosystem respond this situation. In Indonesia, we have a fact-checking network since 2018. There are 22 media outlets part of these networks, and when one of the media outlets label one of the article of media outlets label as a hoax, we will check internally, is it a correct hoax or because of a different perspective among government or other parties and media perspective. So we media outlets will explain this is what they got from the field, and also explain the resources and also the data, and other media of course will have to clarify this situation. So yeah, even I said in the previously we asking the government methodology when they labeled article of media outlets as a hoax. We did something to internally in this network check it together and try to find out what happened, why the government labeled this article as a hoax, and then yeah, as I can see, we of course we fight the government argument with the data. So that's what we are doing. Yeah, since the 2018 and until now. But yeah, we still encourage government not easy to label article for media from the media outlets. I mean from not just from mainstream media, also other media in rural area, from rural area outside Jakarta, when they found different, I mean, when they have perspective with the information that media produce, not easy judge as a hoax, but try to explain to them what their perspective, because in our press law, there are wide space for public and of course to also for the government and our apparatus to explain their perspective, because we should yeah, we should keep the principle of cover both sides, right? And there are wide space for them to give a clarification to media.
Thank you. I saw two more questions that have just come in. I don't know if Jai, you could read them. Sorry, because of my eyesight. No,
no problem.
Turning from
words is very small. Okay. Yeah. There's a question is in English, so I just read it for Hesty. And it say, Mr. AY say, or Mrs. AY say, Thanks very much for your sharing and discussion. Is it possible to elaborate more on environmental reporting in Indonesia, which Ms. Hesti Murthy raised? And perhaps for Mr. Lee, in terms of environmental reporting in Taiwan, if relevant, what are the risks and opportunities? Actually, our audience, this audience, raised both of you, speaker and responder, about the environmental reporting.
Oh, thank you, Jia. You did a great job. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, our presenters, would you please respond or answer? This is about the environmental. The coverage of environmental issues probably involves some protests, and violence and abuse of power, and probably abuse of power by the local elites. So please.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. James, can you repeat the question?
No, I was just trying to, well, probably I did wrong work, and I was trying to elaborate what Jia Yi just read, is shifting the focus from pandemic to environmental issues. Am I correct?
Yeah, I am not sure because its writing is about environmental reporting.
Yes.
I'm not sure. Maybe it's about climate change or.
Yeah. Thank you, Jia Yi. Thank you again. Great.
Yeah.
You're great.
Yeah. In what I can say. Actually, yeah, in Indonesia, there are very much environmental issue, but this is a difficult situation for us now to cover this issue because it's very sensitive issue right now for many stakeholders, and so many media try to what I can say, self-censor to report on environmental issue because the damage on environmental that which happened in Indonesia actually caused by a huge company, a big company that they have very close relation with the government, either local government or central government. And actually this is very important issue, but many media in Indonesia, like not neglected, but not really seriously to cover environmental issue, the damage that happen, environmental damage that happen because of the exploitation that have been doing by a big company. But some media still trying to give attention on this issue, even they faced many challenges. As I mentioned, Jaring.id is a startup media, small media, but has concerns on environmental issue. And last year, when they cover environmental issue in one of area in Indonesia, they were faced denial, DDoS attack, and of course the journalists also facing digital attack, and therefore they many usually only some independent media still cover this issue. For example, Jaring, of course, and Tempo, and it's difficult to mention other big media who really concern on environmental issue. Yeah, because this is a very sensitive, very high risk. High risk for not just for the media itself and also for the journalists. That's maybe I can share. Maybe Zachary Lee, you can share your experience. Do you have any experience on reporting on environmental issue on Metro TV and how the challenge internally?
Okay, thank you very much. I think we are not prepared to shift our focus to some other very important issues because there are so many issues that we are interested and we think important. Now we have two more questions. I think one raised by our chairman, the other by Professor Ling of National Taiwan University. Jia again,
okay.
I would like to ask you to read out the questions in my behalf, please. Thank you.
Of course. And the question from Chairman Su is: once the news is regarded as fake news, what are the punishments to follow? Will they be made administratively, or will there be a juridical process? Will they get punishment by law or by government? That's the Chairman Su's question.
Okay, actually, when the government label media outlets article as hoax, yeah, they just did that to decrease public trust to the media. That because in our law, if any stakeholder try to punish, for example, bring it out to or report it to police officer using ITE law, of course, they will facing a huge criticized from the public, and our law also protect some our media. So if you have if you disagree with the article that released, you should follow some steps to give clarification to the media or report it to press council, because in Indonesia we applying a self-regulatory on media, and in our law, press council has a big role to protect the media. So if a public or government or anybody have a different data on want to fight to media, they should report it to first to the media itself and asking the for the clarification space, and media should receive it because it is an obligation stated in the law at press law in Indonesia. And when the media didn't give space to public to clarify the information, they can report it to a press council, and press council will do investigation which one the correct one. So they will release a recommendation what should media do to clarify, to revise the information, and what the public can do. So actually no punishment from the government, where even they label article from media outlets as a hoax. Yeah, we understand the government just try to decrease public trust to media, and this is a big problem here during the pandemic, mostly because yeah, of course, this is make public confused, and as we understand, government try to increase their public trust by, yeah, that is one of the example, label a media article when criticize the for example the lack of oxygen in when the Delta virus increase. Yeah, they try to denial this situation by labeling media articles as a hoax when the journalists and media publish this situation, because our government didn't want what they said make the situation more difficult for them.
Thank you. Okay, now we have a question from Professor Lane.
Okay, I will read it.
Please, thank you.
And Professor Lin, she say, thanks, Hathy, for your sharing. I would like to know LGBT's rights of communication. Does these groups have their own media? Or is this issue still taboo? Can it be, I think Professor Lin's means, is it possible to discuss LGBT issues publicly in Indonesia? Because Indonesia actually is a majority is Muslim. So yeah. Is it still taboo or is okay now?
Yeah, of course, this is not very easy to discuss LGBTI rights in Indonesia, because majority of our people is Muslim, and this is opposite of their belief. But media trying to discuss this issue with more soft, yeah, to explain for example, during the pandemic, they try to cover how the situation of LGBTI community to access on public health. This try to cover this issue, yeah, but of course not discussing about their rights on, for example, their rights on civil rights. I mean, called as publicly as LGBT, not on that side, but our media try to cover on other side. For example, access to health services during the pandemic, or access on for example, get the ID as a citizen, because this is very, very important. Many LGBTI community in Indonesia out from their family, and they don't have ID, personal ID number, maybe, or yeah, personal ID number is very important for them to access services from the government, including health services. So media try to still giving attention to this community, but in other way, more soft way, not just discuss LGBT as it is, as this sexual identity, but try to discuss as their right as a citizen, their right as a citizen in Indonesia. They have the same right even the same rights, even they identify themselves as LGBT. So that is what I can share to you. It still media have space to give attention on this issue, but they must try safe way to discuss it publicly.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, we were just asking and answering another very complicated set of questions which are facing many societies, especially Islamic societies. So we certainly hope that we'll have more opportunities to explore these complicated issues. So thank you, Professor Lane, for raising this very interesting and important question. Do we have other questions which have come in?
Actually, I have a question.
Yes, please.
As just raised by another audience is about the environmental reporting. Actually, I'm curious because I know that there are lots of many NGO in Indonesia's campaign for the climate change and for the environmental issue, because lots of rainforest in Indonesia, and because the cross countries industry and lots of investment in Indonesia and made air pollution, water pollution in your country, and the native people, they protest those kind of cross country pollution put in the Indonesia. So, but you just mentioned this is quite a sensitive issue in your countries, and because the issue is quite important for your country, but the media coverage is not very popular or magnificent, just like what you mentioned. Do you think it's because you have been make a lot of efforts about human rights issues, in your career? So what's your point of view about this kind of phenomena of media?
Yeah, this is not a good phenomena, because we hope that media voicing the voiceless, right? I mean the public around the local area who affected because of the damage of their environment. But I will give a figure, a little bit information why this situation also very difficult for the media to cover sensitive issue relating environmental issue. Mostly the media revenue right now in Indonesia, 60 until 70% from government, not just from central government, but also local government. I mean, for the big media in Jakarta, it's perhaps maybe 50% from the government spending of the advertisement, and 50 from the others party. I mean, from the private company. But in local area, most of them, the revenue mostly from the government spending of the advertisement. It's around 60 until 70%, or almost 80%, depend on the government spending of the advertisement. So this figure, maybe
80%.
you can.
80%.
Yes,
It's
80%. 80%.
Incredible.
In mostly in local area outside Jakarta. I mean, for the media, local media outside Jakarta, 60 until 80% depend on the government spending on advertisement. So this is a big problem. And yes, from this figure we can. From my side, I try to understand why they, as the media, right now, recently, they can do as their role as the media, criticize anything, a government regulation or anything that should be they wrote to make it more better situation for the public. Some media try to get money from the public by release another business model through a subscription. But this is just for online media. I can say for the online media, this is new things that started by some online media in Indonesia. I don't know, maybe Mr. Zakarli can share on Metro TV, but I can share to you from Tempo, for example. They start to get public or crowdfunding from the public by through subscription, maybe from at least 3 or 4 years ago, but they only get small money from the public, maybe around 5% from the overall revenue. So that's why our media not working as a public hope, criticize the wrongdoing by the private company or the government. They try to do it safely, wrote it on a soft way, not exactly against the government when they do wrongdoing on handle this situation. Some media try to also get funds from the donor. They try to set up, for example, foundation and get funds from donors from other country. But of course, it's only support, yeah, maybe 5%, not really much, and yeah, but they try to do something to back to their role as media, as a public entity, social entity. Even they facing this difficult situation in terms of business model and of course the revenue. And in AMSI, we encourage them to find another business model. Even this is not very easy to apply in Indonesia.
Sure, actually, as we know, we have this same problem in Taiwan, maybe not so serious because the advertisement budget from government actually makes some bias of our Taiwan's media coverage also. We can understand what you mean. And thank you for sharing.
Okay, thank you for the exchange. Very interesting exchange and very, very important sharing, especially comparing, different societies' experiences. We journalists are facing daunting challenges from all the directions. And so I think it's important for us to understand each other's experience and to share experience, and also to probably, hopefully one day to find a common solution to the problems we are facing. Maybe I'm just too optimistic, But nonetheless, I would say, well, we are probably, no, we won't have much time before the end of this session. Do we still have more questions, or do our two presenters would have add anything, hopefully briefly, to what you have said, as well as to what have been asked and answered in the session up to this point?
不知道宗宪有没有要补充的？
Yeah. Do you? Okay. So, Jiayi, do we? So it's about the time to conclude the session.
Sure.
Okay. I just thank you, all of you. Thank you very much. Two presenters, Jiayi, our CEO, our chairman, and Professor Lin, as well as other participants. I cannot identify. You are so great to make your contribution to raise questions. And we are still under pandemic. I just personally wish you well, and please stay safe. Hopefully we'll meet again sometime in the near future, very soon. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.